And I will mute myself anytime I sneeze because my allergies are killing me today.
Raymond, how do you pronounce your name?
Ramon.
Ramon. Okay. Okay. And
Thanks.
how do you like to be introduced? What's your author name?
Ramon Terrell. That's fine.
Ramon Terrell? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. What about you, Dave?
So I go by Dave. My kids' books are published under the name Dave. My adult books are under the initials DJ, but I get Dave is fine. Dave is
Okay.
And you're Jason and Katie, is that right?
Uh-oh, you're touching the mic. That's where the sound's coming from.
Don't touch the mic.
Laptop.
Keep your hand away from the mic, Dave. Well, that would be helpful advice if I knew where the mic was. Okay, I'll do this. No, my question is, you got your name Jason and Katie, right? Am I reading the email chain right?
What's that?
Jason and Katie, Katie and Jason.
That's
Yes.
it.
Yes,
We prefer Katie and Jason.
Katie and Jason.
Katie.
Works fine for me.
Yeah, I'll answer to "Hey you" at this point. I really don't care.
You rotten. I get that a lot.
You mean somebody's talking to me? All right.
Well, at the cons, I get a lot of, oh, that's nice.
Oh.
Damn. Oh.
Now, do we want to talk about your acting side at all, or do you just want to strictly go books?
We want to talk about
Whatever.
that, but he will be coy and shy because this is like the humblest person in Hollywood. Quite aside from being the last non-sex offender, right? Ramon is like, you have to coax out of him. This is why I'm telling you, because you have to like go, you were in Hollywood, right? Yeah. What shows? Yes. Talk about it.
Okay, yes.
Okay. All right. And who are we throwing under the bus first?
Well, I got a little distracted because I was reading this really cool, I don't know if you can see it here, this book.
Nice.
I've been really distracted reading this, so we could probably start with that.
That is an awesome cover, Dave. That is really cool.
She has one bad eye and a thirst for vengeance.
That's
Oh no, she has one good eye.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind having.
I'm happy about that cover. Actually, I expected some of the things I expected when I got picked up by Bane were one, that kind of classic Bane goofy Buck Rogers look cover, and two, which is identifiable. It really helps some of their loyal fans immediately. I was reconciled to it, but I reconciled, not excited. And the other thing is I assumed I'd just come out in a mass market or maybe a trade paper. So I was shocked when I found out that that was my cover and it was coming out in hardback. I feel very lucky.
Oh, well, let's we'll talk about that again once we kind of count in here and get going. Dave, I guess we'll talk to you first, mostly because I like your hat a lot.
Thank you.
So we'll go with you first.
All
right, so we have Dave Butler and Ramon Terrell, right?
Yep.
All right. And of course you, Katie, too.
Who, me? What?
All right. You want me to lead in, Katie?
Yeah, you do it.
All right. Do you want to do like a finger countdown kind of thing?
No, just jump right on in.
All right, fine. That would have been fun. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Spilling Ink, the talk show that takes you behind the scenes in the publishing world. Joining us tonight are Ramon Terrell and Dave Butler. Hey, guys, how's it going?
Hey.
Happy
Dave's over there just being quiet. There you are. There were bombs going off outside his house just a few minutes ago as he was tapping the microphone, I think. And also our host, Miss Katie Salidas. Hey, Katie, how's it going?
Got to pause for dramatic effect there. What's up, Jason? Hi, guys. How you doing this week?
Hey, Katie. Doing great.
Great to be here.
All right. Well, welcome to another episode. Let's jump right on in with this week. Dave, you've got a recent release. You want to tell us a little bit about it?
Yes, you're talking about Witchy Eye?
Absolutely. That is a gorgeous book, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, Dan Dos Santos is the cover artist. The book 2 is even better, maybe. The cover art's up on Amazon. Witchy Winter is the title. He's been gracious enough to let me use on the album. I don't know if you know this, but eccentric that I am, so that book is actually full of music. But they're not poetry fake song lyrics, they're actually real songs, and I released the folk album about, and it's got the same cover.
So are these songs that you wrote, or what?
Mostly, although there are some some old public domain songs. The Anacreontic song, To Anacreon in Heaven. I don't know if you know. Okay, so this is.
Well, give us the melody.
We're like already off on a sidetrack, but I have to tell you. So here's one of the things I love about America. The melody for the Star Spangled Banner, that song, it actually comes from an earlier song, which is called To Anacreon in Heaven. The drinking song written for 18th century men's club. And it appears in the book Witchy Eye, along with a couple of older pieces. There's actually a German hiking song, Watt's hymn from the early 18th century. The rest of them I wrote.
Wow!
Yeah.
So you released an album with this. So this is you playing the songs and
singing. It's me, all of it. Yeah.
Wow.
I am truly nuts. I also went ahead and updated my LinkedIn profile and added folk singer. The occupation.
So is there going to be a version where you sing the entire book, just every word of the book too?
That would be, see, now people ask me sometimes if I'm going to do the audiobook, and I can't because the book has way too many accents, and an accent. You wouldn't want me. You'd stop on page 1 if you listen to me recording the book.
Well, give it a shot here. Give us like an Old West accent. You've got the cool top hat and everything. Show us what you got.
Not even going there. Not going to do it. Well, let me tell you about the book. So that, on the cover, now I love the cover. It's gorgeous. There is sometimes you get a little bit misled because they think, oh, this is a YA book because there's a young woman's face on it. Or they think, oh, it's cyberpunk because there's sort of her eyes red. There's like a lasery thing going on. Those are not right. So let me tell you about the book. This is that on the cover is Sarah, witch. She is talented and funny and brave and fiercely loyal and smart and paranoid and xenophobic and mean. The story opens on the day of the tobacco fair in Nashville in 1815. The rest of the Calhoun family young'uns are coming down to the fair to sell the family crop, and a Yankee Army chaplain who is also a wizard tries to kidnap Sarah because she has a secret history of which she's unaware. Child she never knew. Her true mother is the dead Empress, Mad Hannah Penn, former Penn. And the living emperor, her uncle Thomas Penn, has learned of her existence and views her as a threat to his wealth and power and wants her killed. Fantasy, it's a fairy tale, it's a quest, but it's set in a setting where I've taken Jacksonian America, unbolted all the pieces, reassembled them as an epic fantasy setting.
Wow.
I'm going to have to read this.
Sounds pretty heavy duty.
I'm a little bit halfway reading it. It's pretty fantastic.
Oh, awesome.
Oh,
awesome.
Thank you. So you got past the scene where her eye has become active.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I'm the part I got to is not to give any spoilers, but she knows who's after her, and he almost grabbed hold of her from a long way away. He was pretty creepy. I liked it.
Yeah. Oh, very cool.
Yeah, that's just not fair because I have no idea what's happening.
Exactly.
That's the point. Now you have to go get the book and read it.
Awesome book.
So you gave us a good, a good pitch on this book here. What would be, because I heard you guys when I was still trying to connect and I couldn't get my video feed. I heard you guys talking about conventions. So, and I heard you talking about how sometimes people will just say, "Hey, I've got a werewolf book," or "Hey, I've got a vampire book." What is your short pitch for that book when you tell people what it is?
Man, at that level, I don't have one. I will say
that's a tough one.
Right. This is the problem with my strategy has been to write books that are not fungible. Somebody else couldn't write a book that you're like, that's a Dave Butler book by damn. The downside is it's never that easy. I can say it. I can go, oh yeah, it's an epic fantasy, and that's true. Or I can say it's an epic black powder fantasy.
What's a black powder fantasy?
Well, see, that's it, right? I'm already like, what is it? Well, it's a fantasy where you have flintlock, firearms and cannon. I could say it's an alternate history, and that isn't right exactly. It is an epic fantasy in a reconstructed North America. Just like you heard, I've said that like 1,000 times this summer.
Wow. Excellent.
You just kind of have to hand him the book and say, "Look at the back cover."
Yeah.
There's a cool map on the back cover. There's like a crinkly parchment style map of North America, and you look at it and go, "Oh, but it's not quite like, I don't know." There you go. Some of the names don't seem quite right. Where are the state lines? What is this? And yet there's Nashville and there's Philadelphia. So that does help.
Yeah. That sounds awesome. And I can see what you're saying about people thinking it might be YA or cyberpunk, because when I looked at the front cover, the first thing that I thought, it was this some kind of futuristic thing, and this eyeball is like shooting red stuff out of it. I was like, yeah, like Universal Soldier kind of thing. But no, a really badass cover. I like it a lot.
It is.
Ramon, tell us a little bit about you.
Okay. Well,
I heard that you're an actor.
Yeah, actor.
I see what you mean. He's like, no, I don't want to talk now.
I want to talk about which
star my favorite episode of Arrow.
Favorite episode? Second.
I didn't like Arrow very much, but that one episode, there's like a firefighter who died. Is it like episode 3 or 5 or something? It's right in the first season.
Something like that. It was with the burn guy and.
Wait, what show? What show were we talking about?
Arrow.
Arrow.
Okay.
The first season of Arrow was awesome. That was like the best season they've ever had. Was their opening season.
Yeah.
You were in Arrow?
Yeah, I had a brief part in Arrow before I was burned alive.
Oh man.
Yeah, I was the character. I can't remember her name, but De La Vega.
Okay.
I played her brother who got burned alive, Danny De La Vega, who was a firefighter.
No kidding.
You see him in firefighting here. So that's actually a role where you won't see his face. But in Once Upon a Time, right?
Okay.
Recurring role for 3 seasons. Is that?
Yeah, I was one of Robin Hood's Merry Men for I think 3 or 4 seasons in Once Upon a Time. We started off in Once Upon a Time in Wonderland, and then when Wonderland didn't make it, they kind of spun us right into Once Upon a Time, and then because they wove Robin Hood's story in with what is it, Regina the Evil Witch,
Evil Queen.
Okay.
Oh yeah. I loved her romance with him. I thought that was so cute.
Oh, my God, I hated her so much. Oh my God, I hated her.
It's kind of funny because you can, I'm not, I haven't been in the game as long as them, but it's kind of funny when you're working on a show with actors who are actual cast members and how their characters a lot of times affect the way you relate to the outside world. And what I mean by that is, as her character started becoming more good, she became a little bit more outgoing. Not to say that she was always standoffish or anything, and I'm talking about the actual actor herself. But you could kind of tell it was a little easier to play a nicer person, And, I think about some of the stuff that I've done and how you have to sit in that energy for however long. And I've done some there's this one web series called Single and Dating in Vancouver, and it's absolutely hilarious. and my character is just this inept guy. Like, I end up being the boyfriend of one of the main characters, and he's just clueless, completely clueless, not particularly great in the bedroom department, and just having to kind of sit in that. It's funny because so it's it's more than just putting on a face and saying the lines. It's actually kind of like from my little bit of experience getting to live with any kind of depth in a character, you actually kind of take it and internalize it and sit in it, and you live it for that period of time. So it's really been an interesting experience with that. With the married man thing, I didn't have any speaking roles, so you still kind of live in that character. So it's really a lot of fun, and it kind of, if I can use the term dovetails, it kind of dovetails into writing really well, because
it sounds like it. It really does. I mean, you're in a way you're living in that zone, only you get to be one of the characters when you're acting.
Exactly. And every once in a while I posts on Facebook. I call them coffee shop adventures, and on one of them I had a character who was doing a certain thing, and I was like, I'm trying, you're trying to figure out what that looks like and if it looks weird. So you just kind of, I posted in my coffee shop adventures that I made the action that the character was making in the book, but then pass it off as a yawn, so you don't look weird in public, right? But yeah.
Now I have a question for you. Since we've quite thoroughly diverted from where we were going to be, which was talking about your writing. But I've got to stay there, because now this is an exhibit. Now, do you ever have scenes where you're intimate or romantic with another actor?
I have fortunately not had that yet.
Okay.
It's kind of funny because my wife was the first one to tell me. She's like, you're gonna have to get your mind around the fact that eventually you're probably gonna have to kiss somebody.
That's where I'm going, because I'll tell you what, whenever I watch movies, and nowadays when you get a big name actor in the movie, you know who it is, so it's kind of hard to put them 100% in the role. But I'll watch and I'll be like, in my head, I know Ryan Reynolds is married to whoever Ryan Reynolds is married to, who I don't actually know, but some gorgeous, awesome woman, and then go and watch one of his movies where he's making out with somebody. I'm like, I wonder if, as husband and wife, if they avoid watching those movies together, or how you get around that, because I don't know that I'd be able to handle it.
I can speculate based on myself.
Speculate.
One, if my wife, thank God she's not. If my wife was an actor, I don't think I would watch it. No, I'm not going to say I don't think. I wouldn't watch it.
Yeah.
And if I ever get to the point where I do have to do a scene where, I'm kissing someone else, I'm just going to hope she doesn't watch it, because I wouldn't even want to watch it. So, yeah, I mean, it's work. At the end of the day, it's work. I mean, you go in and this is where it gets kind of interesting. Because it really is work. I mean, you go in and you're, it's not you, it's the character. It's you living in the character, and
well, it is. At the same time, that after you go home, after you've been hired to make out with Gal Gadot in Wonder Woman 2, and you go home and your wife's like, yeah, let's go out and watch this movie. You're like, oh, honey, I don't think we should.
No.
But, it really wasn't that good, let's go watch.
So, okay, well, we'll have to get back to your acting soon. But
okay.
Ramon, tell us what you write. Tell us a little bit about it.
Well, I write epic fantasy, urban fantasy, and also kind of like maybe fantasy on the adventure side as well. So on the adventure fantasy, like if you're familiar with Terry Brooks or Ari Salvatore, who's my personal writing hero, I have adventure fantasy that kind of falls in that vein, where you have it's a little bit more lighthearted, lots of super huge big moments, detailed battle scenes, stuff like that, camaraderie. The epic fantasy side, the high fantasy, would be more along the lines. I have a book that I'm actually going to re-release called Unleashed, on the Saga of Ruination, and I'm working on a book for a hopefully they'll take it, for a publisher that invited me to submit. It's called Shadowlancer, and has a cool magic system where magic basically flows around you. It's in the world. It flows around you. It's within you. It's within everything. It's in the air. And Lancers actually, the best way I can describe it is, you dip your the magic. They don't call it the magic in the world. They call it the stream.
They draw it out.
Yeah, it's like you dip your hand into the stream and you draw it out, and then you form it. And you can form anything from like something that looks along the lines of a transparent whip, where you can whip energy at someone, or you can produce like a disc with like dozens of little holes within the disc that might fire off stream energy at someone, or it might be a protective disc. And there's different types of Lancers. You have defensive Lancers, offensive Lancers, and the ones that are kind of my favorites are the flow Lancers. A flow Lancer is basically someone who, let's say you do an offensive lance at someone and you send magical energy at them. They'll actually guide it around themselves, guide it into something else, and send it back at you. So,
Nice.
you know, there's so many different techniques you can do with lancing. And once you've lanced the power, now here's the caveat, there's a thing called a life price. And the life price basically is whenever you use magic, whenever you touch the stream, it draws a certain amount of time off of your life. So if you decide you're cold and you want to lance a fire because you're out in the middle of nowhere and you want to lance a campfire, you're paying, let's just say, 5 minutes off your life. No big deal. But if you're in a conflict and you have to create, say, an earthquake or a storm or something, then, you know, your life price might be 30 years.
Wow.
So,
So magic really does have a price then. In this
yeah. And
Okay.
so that's why, you know, you don't see people just walking around like just, you know, lancing all over the place, because, you know, you're going to pay a price whether it's small or large.
Now, is there a way in this world that someone could somehow steal away, you know, life from another person to use for their magic? Or
It's an awesome question. It's almost like you know the book.
oh,
So,
I don't. Well, sorry, we don't want to get into spoilers, but that's where my mind went. I was like, okay,
that's
as a bad
actually,
guy, how do I do this?
no, that's actually the first. I think that's probably a natural question someone would ask. Like, how do you get around the life price?
Yeah.
Well, the book being called Shadowlancer is just that. So you have Lancers, you have Dark Lancers, and you have Shadow Lancers. Each person, when they lance, their movements are trailed. When they touch the stream, there's a transparent color that traces their movements. It's called a lance resin. Your lance resin is naturally gold. Now, if you siphon, in order to beat the life price and increase your power, you have to defeat and siphon the life stream from another Lancer.
Nice.
Now, everybody has the life stream in them, but the life stream in a Lancer is actually more developed and it's more powerful. So it's not really worth it to someone who, say, wants to, you know, drain someone that they drain a regular person, because they might get, like, you know, a couple minutes or whatever. But to drain another Lancer, you increase your power and you don't pay the life price. Now, that's it. It's pretty much the unforgivable act, and it also makes you an addict. So once you drain someone once, when you siphon their life stream, you become an addict. And now, although you have all this power and you can only build on it by siphoning more people, the more people you siphon, the more addicted you get, and the more you're willing to do anything to get it. Now, the protagonist, the heroine in this story, her name is Zaira, and she actually is a Dark Lancer. She siphoned someone, but it was kind of by accident. It wasn't an evil act. It was she was competitively sparring with someone who always beats her. And I don't want to go into spoilers, but basically she has this dark secret in that she is an actual Dark Lancer. But she's the only known, well, she's not known, but it's pretty much known throughout the world that no one can live with the addiction. Yet she does. So this is a story about Zaira, who is a quote unquote addict, but she lives with it, and she has as her penance, she never lances. She's no longer a Lancer. She refuses to lance. Nobody knows her secret, but she has this beautiful, great blue steel scimitar called Shatir, and it's imbued with the power to actually shatter or sunder lances. So you lance power at her, her weapon can actually break it. and it's called a Lancecraft artifact. A Lancecraft artifact is created by a lancer who lances their life stream into an item to create it, and it gives it a specific property, a magical property, and everyone is unique.
Wow. That's pretty intricate, man. So okay, so now how long did it take you to develop this world? I mean, how long did you think about this before you were able to start putting it to paper? Because this sounds incredibly intricate.
I took I came up with the idea originally with someone else, and we spent probably about maybe a week or two. And then, things broke down, and I ended up having to go my own way with it. So I pretty much scrapped it and had to start from scratch. So started from scratch. I probably worked on the outline and the world and everything for a couple of months, maybe like 2 or 3 months, something like that. And I created the magic system, created the world. It's loosely based, very, very loosely based, partially on sub-Saharan Africa. There is a race of people called the Yuntai, which is loosely based on China, a region of China. And then the third region that's mentioned is Dorheigen. Dorheigen is kind of like loosely based on your, European, across the sea, European, Scandinavian type race. So those are the 3 regions right now that are known. But Dorheigen and Samhar, which is the sub-Saharan based culture, are the 2 that are the central to this book. Long story short, I'd say it probably took me several months to kind of like flesh everything out, and then as I'm writing, new details will come in and I have to record them and stuff like that. So it's an organic process.
Okay. Can we take a pause real quick while we've got a breaking point? Because I want to touch on that subject a little closer. But Ramon, you're starting to fade into the background. Is the sun going down?
Oh yeah, let me go turn on the light.
I'm like, wait, we want to be able to see you.
All right, I'll go turn on the light.
Yeah. I'll be right back too. The cockatoo is screaming upstairs, so I'm going to bring her down for us.
Okay. But yeah, I definitely want to touch on this subject of time we put into writing and go, like I said, into the sacrifices for that craft. So good stopping point for a second.
How's that?
There you go.
Put you back on focus.
I'm fading into shadow now.
You were. I was like, wait, where's he going?
I must.
Yeah, that's much better. Much better.
Thank you. All right, cool.
There's a connection, and maybe this is, or maybe this is something you want to kind of talk about. But Ramon and I have both leveraged day job activities to be able to sell books, because sometimes conventions bring Ramon in for the acting background. Or sometimes it's useful in terms of using a poster or talking to someone to get their attention and segue to, and Hidden Legends of Echoes of a Shattered Age, which is about a brother-sister team. She's a ninja, he's a samurai, kind of stuff. So there's a connection. My point is the acting stuff, there's more connection there to writing than we've touched upon.
It's kind of funny that you mentioned that too, because a lot of times when people ask me about my urban fantasy series, which is it's a vampire and werewolf series, and on my banner it shows that I was on the show Supernatural. It's actually my first credit. And people are like, "Oh man, so vampires werewolf. So is it kind of similar to Supernatural?" Which, as funny as it's gonna sound, I really haven't watched much of the show, so I couldn't tell you. But I don't think it does. But a lot of times it just kind of the similarities kind of segue sometimes. It's kind of interesting how that works.
Well, a lot of things in life too. It's the whole, it's not what you know, it's who you know that helps you bridge gaps and make connections to get things done. It's so true. And even those smaller connections, the shows you've worked on, your acting credits can be leveraged so much more than, somebody who doesn't have any connections at all.
Yeah, sometimes it helps. I think it helps the more famous you get. Case in point, I was actually in the bookstore up here in Canada. It's called Chapters, and I see this book and it has Wesley Snipes' name on it. I'm a fan of Wesley Snipes. I'm like, oh, what's this? I pick it up, and he's, it's co-written with another author, which I'm gonna guess means that they came up with the concept together, and the co-author probably wrote the majority or all of it, but the acting side definitely can help, especially as you build a name for yourself. That is absolutely beautiful bird.
Oh, thank you. She's been stuck upstairs, so she wanted some attention, but I think she's going to go hang out and eat here. This is Bella, the cockatoo. She's naughty. She bit the crap out of my mom today. So Bella does not like my mother, and I haven't quite figured out why yet. But today, Mom came over and visited for a few minutes, and Bella flew off me at my mother, latched onto her torso, and started biting her side. I'm like, holy crap! Like, she's a peaceful bird. So I kind of feel like my mom might be harboring some kind of demon, and Bella's trying to save her.
Quick story. We're in the pet shop once, and there's this African gray. And my wife and I are in there, and I walk up to the African gray, and I'm like, hi, and it's, hi, it starts talking and everything. Just the cutest bird, friendly and everything. My wife, now, Dave, you've met Tanya, the most bubbly, nicest person in the world. My wife walks up, bird. Just growls at her, and she's like, what in the world? So she steps back, and it stops. I walk up, hi. That is so funny. Just talking and everything. So my wife is like, let me try that. So she walks up. they just make up their mind whether they like you or not. It's hilarious.
They're funny creatures, and it's amazing how much smarts fits into that little head of theirs.
Oh yeah.
Especially those African grays. We have one up at the vet clinic that I work out, and she lives up there, and she's a feisty little thing. Some days she loves you. Other days it's like, you better not come close to me because I'll get you.
Yep.
All right. What were we talking about before I derailed us there again?
All right. So we had stopped on the how long it took to write and craft that world. And what I wanted to do is kind of transition that into not only the work that went into writing it, but the sacrifices you have to make as a writer to get your work done, to get it out there, and to sell the book to either, a publisher or find an agent or however you go about doing that.
But let me just say a minute, Katie, that I saw a picture earlier, I believe it was on Instagram, of your little girl. And looking at you now, it's like, holy crap, you're like identical almost. It was adorable.
Which was it, Allie or was it Zoe?
It was a little one with glasses.
They both have glasses.
Do they really?
Yeah.
Oh, well, whatever one's the cute, adorable one that looks just like you.
Oh, that's both of them. So.
Oh, of course.
You're talking to Mom here. I'm not going to pick one over the other.
Well, I'll find it. As Dave tells us, what was the question again, Katie?
It was a very big question about sacrifices and time and something.
I'm bringing up a general topic here about what we have to do to get our craft, to work on our craft and to publish and get it out to the public. And go.
That's a very general question. So maybe I can answer a general question by telling you kind of my path, because I think it illustrates a lot of things. Let me communicate what I think is the moral up front, which is that you have to get lucky. And that is hard to hear. Your success may come from bits of little luck, it may come from a big piece of luck. You have to get lucky. And unfortunately, it's not a kind of luck you get by hanging out at home. You have to work really, really hard to be in a position to be able to maybe get lucky and maybe not.
Fortune favors the working.
How do you work hard to get to that position?
Yes. So let me kind of just tell you my story, kind of where I am now. 2010, I started writing. I mean, I had written before, but in 2010, a wonderful thing happened. I lost my job. So I got paid some money for the privilege. So I had cash and I could write for a while. So I actually, for 2 years, I wrote full time before I came back and work job stuff. And I thought, hey, 2 years, I can do this. This is easy, right? So, yeah. So on my first book was terrible. My second book, I picked up an agent, head of a medium-sized New York literary agency. I thought, this is it. This is great. I'm on my way. Got a couple of nice try, close, not this time, maybe next time, kind of rejections. He said, what else do you have? And I sent him Witchy Eye, this book that just got published in the spring. He said, oh, this is great. This could be the next big thing. I said, cool. He gave me some comments, and then I revised it, and then he was silent and silent and silent. I said, man, you're real slow at reading my stuff. He said, you should go self-publish. So I said, self-publishing. And then a year after he picked me up on a day when he was scheduled to have a call with me, he emailed me copying his lawyer and saying, I just don't have time for you. We're done. So now, in the meantime, I had become an indie author. I'd self-published a couple of things. Now, by the way, this is January 2012. So then, in February of 2012, keep track of this date, I submitted Witchy Eye. I had met Tony at the 2011 Worldcon, Tony Weisskopf, and I gave her a copy of Witchy Eye. She said, this may not be a good fit for us, but I'll take a look at it. Okay, cool. February 2012. My wife and I, in that year, had co-written some stuff. She went out and landed an agent. Tried with several other books, didn't get an agent, self-published some things. I kind of thought, wow, I guess I'm going to be a self-published guy. And so I was reconciled to being in that world while trying hard, still writing stuff. My wife got a publishing deal with Egmont with a co-written book. So this is a big press debut. Yep, except then Egmont said, well, we don't want Dave's name on it. Because we think middle readers will be confused by two authors. So my debut was going to be not my name on it. Yeah, and then better, Egmont, like 8 months before publication, said, you know what, we're done in the U.S. We're just going to stick to Scandinavia from now on, and they just pulled it. So we have arcs. We have a box full of arcs of this book that they made that was going to come out, right, with only my wife's name on it that we co-wrote. So I had a book called The Kidnap Plot. So I'm out there using my self-published stuff as calling cards, getting into cons, meeting people, trying to meet editors, selling books, selling, dozens of copies of books, slowly building up allies and readers. I have then a middle reader book called The Kidnap Plot. I'd sent it out to a bunch of agents. They passed. I had it loaded in CreateSpace with a cover of my purchasing. I was prepared to print it. I just had to hit the publish button when one of the agents got back and said, "Ooh, let me look." And so for like 3 months, I kind of played the I'm gonna be cool game, and and I'm still working on other stuff, and I got a day job now. And then she comes back and says, "Yeah, let me represent this." And she sends it to one editor and gets a deal. Gets a 3-book, $90,000 deal from Random House. I went from this is never going to happen, right, to being with one of the world's biggest publishers. And by the way, Michelle is a way bigger. Both my editors are way bigger deals than I am. So she also edits Aragon, or if you go into bookstores and see a blue kids book called Wonder, it's coming out in a movie now.
Oh my God, dude! One of my kids is reading that right now.
Yeah. Okay. Or like the Emerald Atlas, or she's a huge deal. So that's coming out, and then and I'm still and I had at that point went to Wordfire Press and said, hey, and we could talk about this. Well, let me talk about it. So one of the things I had done to sell, market, and make allies was go to Comic-Cons. because the Comic-Con scene went from 0 to 60 in Salt Lake City. They just said, hey, you know, we should do one of these. And they got like 100,000 people the first time. And I was in on the ground floor, not as an organizer or anything, but, you know, they knew me. And so from day one, they've been inviting me to these things. And in a very small way. Here I am, self-published guy, fellow self-published authors, 6-foot table. There's 8 of us. We're like standing out in the aisle talking to people because only 2 of us can sit, you know. And I saw Wordfire Press, which was what the time was the Wordfire Shop. It was a traveling bookstore. Now that bookstore, they've separated from the press, but it's called the Bard's Tower. It travels around to conventions still. And I went to Wordfire Press and pitched them and said, you should pick up my self-published stuff because I want to come with you on the road. And so I started doing this. And then, remember, February 2012, I submitted Witchy Eye to Toni Weisskopf at Baen. February 2016, she makes me an offer. Yeah. Now, this is a book that her first response was, that might not be a good fit for us.
Now, can I ask? I know you're kind of still in the middle of what you're talking about,
yep.
But in the 4-year gap there, were you still in contact with them, or so you knew that it was something they were still thinking about?
Well, so that's a good question. So here's my tactic. Okay, I didn't want Toni to feel, and Toni, by the way, is a woman. Toni Weisskopf, Antonia is a woman. There is another Toni at Baen who's Tony D is a man. Toni Weisskopf. So I didn't want Toni to feel like I was annoying. So I would send her emails, about every 3 months or so, and I would wait until there was something to congratulate her for. Hey, you're a finalist for the Hugo Award. Well done. Hey, so-and-so just hit the bestseller charts. Hey, I hear Eric Flint is talking about doing a movie, right? And I would message her and say, hey, congratulations, it's very cool. I know you're really busy, and I look forward to hearing from you when you've had a chance to read Witchy Eye. As a way to remind her and not pressure her. So she never said, oh yeah, I'll read it soon. But I was talking to her. She never said no. So I knew I was still in her queue. But it did take 4 years.
So in that 4 years, were you tempted to try to self-publish it, or because you've got this cool story, what kept you from doing that?
So I could have self-published it. I thought about it. Wordfire Press, we talked about it. I could have done it there. I could have. I got an offer from another press that said it was sort of a small press. They said we'll publish it, but only if you take all the cussing out. And the cussing is not so bad. It is PG level. They wanted 0. And I get that, but like that's not this book. And none of those were right. None of those were right. This is of the things I've written. This is the thing that is closest to my heart. Is the thing I believed in. I deliberately chose not to do those until I could get, a major publisher. And by the way, in many of the alternate universes that alternate Daves inhabit, I never got one. Right? Like there's a luck element here. There are other alternate universe Daves who are still waiting, or who got a rejection and who just didn't get the luck. So the moral is not hold out and you will have your dream. That's not it. The moral is I got lucky. But
now, let's not discount the fact that you were also very tactful in reminding them about your book being there. You weren't pushy. You weren't trying to say, hey, you've had this for this long. You found a nice way to say, hey, I'm still here. I'm still waiting. I'm not being pushy. I'm following what you're doing. Yeah. And that helps too. That relationship building is a big element too on that whole, it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Right. And I was very strategic about getting to know other Baen people. and the Wordfire shop, now the Bard's Tower, was very helpful with that. And so I met a lot of Bane writers, and I'd always reach out to Tony and say, hey, I met Sonia Lyris today. She's a good egg. I had fun with her. Hey, enjoyed meeting Chuck Gannon, blah, 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 right? Deliberately getting to know Bane editors and people, deliberately, systematically making sure Tony saw me as a person who sells books. And I don't mean lots of numbers. I mean working hard.
Yeah.
So Tony would look at me and go like, that guy sure gives the impression that he works hard. And when she was considering buying the book, she went to Larry Correa, who is a friend of mine, and Larry told me this and said, hey, Dave, one, is he good to work with? And two, is he going to work hard? And Larry Correa said, oh, man, the dude's a workaholic. And you're right, he did me a solid. And by the way, now I'm in the process of talking about other projects with Bane. And honestly, I believe it's all on the back of me continuing to work really hard. We can talk about the things we're doing to sell books, but I honestly, this year I work harder at selling. I spend more time selling than I spend writing. And I think that is why we are now seriously talking about Bane doing more deals with me. So
let's flip this over to Ramon too. And I wanted to talk about process towards getting his books published too, so we can kind of compare notes. Okay, so out of all of us, because I've been also traveling with Bard's Tower, and of the non-mega famous authors, I would say Dave is the first one to level it up, right? So I'm what I hope is a step behind Dave. I have. So basically, my story starts off similar. I wrote my first book around 2001, 2002, but I didn't really start writing seriously until 2010. And so Echoes of a Shattered Age was the first book I ever wrote. And there's only one reason why I actually published it. And that's because when I submitted the book I submitted it to probably about a dozen, maybe somewhere around a dozen publishing houses. And I got none of them came back form rejection letters. All of them came back with some form of tailored rejection letters. And they were all to the effect of, you know what, this was actually a really solid effort for a first-time author, but, right now we're not taking on new authors. Or, you know what, it's really obvious that you put a lot of work into this and it shows, but right now we're not in the market to developing a new author. So it was feedback like that. So that gave me the impression that, okay, this book actually doesn't suck, so it's it being my first book, I always, do the first book cringe where it's like, I look at the prose and everything and I think about what I've written now, but it's a solid first book. 2010, I moved to Vancouver, BC. And it was one of those things where I'd had trouble writing for several years because I was living in Texas. I wasn't really kind of enjoying myself there, and it was just tough. And then I moved to Vancouver, and I got here June 1st, 2010, and I started writing Legends of a Shattered Age, the second book, June 15th, 2010, and I finished it by the end of summer and then started the third book. And those are going to continue being small published, and I'm re-releasing those. And then I started my vampire series. As far as how it's been for me is I started off self-publishing, and then an editor at Wordfire Press asked to see some of my work. So I submitted some of my books to him, and he's like, you know what, we actually like these, so we'll go ahead and we'll go through some rewrites with you and help polish them up, and we'd like to re-release them. So that's what's been the process over the past several years. And moving from that, I was at New York Comic-Con last year with Dave, as well as a bunch of other authors, and Toni Weisskopf, I believe she passed through at one point, and I got to say hi to her. But Jim Mintz, who is also one of the high-ranking editors at Bane,
invited me to come to dinner with himself, Dave Butler, and Larry Correa. So we're walking down the street from the con after it closed, and we're walking to the restaurant. And so I'm talking to Jim, and then Jim gives me his business card. And so then he goes inside to the restaurant to secure our reservation and everything. And I'm talking to Dave and Larry, and I'm like, "Hey, Dave," I was like, "What do you think?" I don't want to bug the guy, but I was like, I'd really like to submit Bane's one of the publishing houses that I'd like to be published by. And he's like, "Well, didn't he give you his card?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Pretty sure that probably means that you're invited to submit something." But he's like, "Why don't you go ahead and ask Larry and make sure?" So, I'm talking to Larry. I asked Larry, I was like, "Hey, Larry, I got a question." I was like, "Do you think Jim would be opposed to me submitting something?" He's like, "Well, didn't he give you his card?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Yeah, let me submit. Go ahead and submit a book, man." So, it was just kind of funny, how that happened. And so I had to wrap some things up over the course of the year. And so Shadowlancer, what I was telling you about, is actually the book that I'm working on now that I'm going to submit to Bane. And it's the one that I hope will be my first major publishing house book. So that's kind of been what my path has been to this point.
Okay.
It sounds a lot like, it's those connections you make, those real human connections that tend to lead towards, creating your luck or better things.
That's the biggest part of it. I mean, and to be honest, it's the parallel is just almost funny between like from the acting side and the writing side. Is you do the work and you work hard, but there is an element of luck. But I've found that luck always finds me working. Luck doesn't find me at home. It doesn't find me, as much as I love playing video games. It doesn't find me playing video games. It doesn't find me sitting reading, and I do those things. But luck always finds you working. Just like they say, the muse finds you working, luck finds you working. So, trying to connect with people who are in the same field as you, and putting yourself out there, going to conventions, meeting people, talking to people, being nice to people, and then, once you've established those relationships with people, you kind of let it organically grow. You can't jump, a lot of times you can't jump straight to the bullet and be like, "Hey, this is what I want. This is what I got. I'm doing this, blah, 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 blah." People are like, okay, I'll talk to you about it later. I'm going to go over here. You meet people and you just kind of establish a relationship with them and you let them see you working. And if they're busy, they may forget. And this is where it comes into how, and to be honest, I just try to copy Dave a lot of times. So, because he's very smart about the way he goes about things. So, you pick very subtle and non-intrusive ways of keeping yourself in someone's mind from time to time, because everybody's busy. So it's just, it's hard work and meeting people and then more hard work. And, that sacrifice subject. Yeah, the sacrifice is that. I think the sacrifice is probably one of the biggest factors as to who achieves success in whatever their given field is and who doesn't, or to what degree. Because I always remember watching this stand-up comedy show once, and Kings of Comedy. And I remember something D.L. Hughley said, because they were talking about when they were doing stand-up, telling jokes and, stuff like that, and on the road. And D.L. Hughley was like, he's like, "You gonna pay your dues." There was no like, you might pay your dues, you might get lucky. He looked right at the camera. He's like, "No, you gonna pay your dues. You're gonna pay them. There's no way around it." And I live in Vancouver, BC, man. I mean, it's like the mountains are carpeted with evergreen trees. There's the beach. And in wintertime, there's Whistler. There's local skiing that's like 15-minute drive away. There's all this stuff going on. There's like shows. There's the movies. There's Bard on the Beach, which is like Shakespearean play on the beach. It's in the summertime. There's all kinds of stuff to do. And I'm sitting in that coffee shop, and I'm seeing people going cycling around Stanley Park and everything. And I'm sitting in that coffee shop, or I'm in acting class, or I'm taking a writing workshop or something. So, it's what you want, how bad you want it, and how hard you want to work for it. And then while you're doing that, trying to connect with people who are where you want to be or who can help you get to where you want to be.
Yeah, it's rough. I know, just from my perspective, A lot of people ask me how I get my books out each year, and I aim for 3 books a year, and I do a lot self-publishing, and I'm trying to broach the traditional marketplace right now. I have a book I just finished that is specifically written towards the traditional marketplace, and I'm querying and everything.
Yeah.
We'll see where that goes. But for me, you know, I'm mom during the day. I'm up at 6 a.m. I've got 3 kids. I get them to school. I get them to, you know, where they need to go, their appointments, their classes, whatnot. And then I don't get a break until, you know, they go to bed. And when they go to bed, I'm militant about it. 8 o'clock is bedtime. Once I sit down in this chair, after I've sent everyone to bed, read stories, did whatever, I have 4 decent working hours before I pass out.
Yeah.
Because no matter what happens, no matter what work I get done, 6 a.m. rolls around, that alarm clock goes off, I'm back up and at it again, because moms don't get days off.
And I think that's one of the things that I've always really admired about your work ethic, Katie, is that you're able to do that consistently. And I know I'm sure not every day you're able to pound out as many words as you'd like, but you really you have goals for the year and you meet your goals. And I know I've talked to you when you're under the gun for deadline for getting stuff out, and you're just like, I'm going batshit crazy right now because I've got so much that I'm putting out right now, and I don't know how the hell you keep up with it. I don't know how half of the authors out there that are producing these large numbers of works are doing it, because, you know, let's face it, we all have our lives as well. You know, Katie as full-time mom, I'm a dad, and I work at a animal hospital, and it's kind of like, you know what, by the time I get people in bed, there's not that much time left, and then I'm beat, and I don't want to come down here and sit on the computer and try to stay awake and write. So, you know, I think that, you know, Dave and Ramon, you both have kind of emphasized the importance of that hard work as well as the luck. And you know, I think you're exactly right. I need to work harder and get lucky.
Well, I'll
out there
to share my my daily routine, my daily work routine, when because I work I work for an airline, and so typically my start time is 3:30 p.m. and then I work until midnight. So on my work days, I typically get up somewhere between 7:30 and 8:30. And when I'm on schedule, I do my morning workout, get cleaned up, and then I head to the coffee shop near my job. So it's about 45 minutes to an hour, depending on traffic. And so I get there somewhere between 8:30 and 9:30, depending on when I've gotten out of the house. And I write until 2:30. And then at 2:30, I pack it up, and then I go to work till midnight, get home by 1, down by 1:30 to 2, wash, rinse, repeat every day. And then on my days off, I get up in the morning, and then I write for anywhere from 4 to 8 hours, depending on, you know, what I have going on that day. But yeah, I try to, you know, I squeeze it in before work. I'm not much of a nighttime writer. I'm a morning writer. I get my best work done then.
A lot of times you have to make that time. You really do have to set aside, you know, some time that you will not use for anything else. You know, like for me, when I say 8 p.m. is bedtime, I'm pretty damn strict about that. You know, my littles, they are in bed by 8 p.m. My older one, who doesn't have a bedtime, she knows that once my butt is in this chair, mom is at work.
Yep.
And she knows what she's supposed to do. She's old enough to be able to take care of business, but that's it. I've got to have some sacred space to write, because that is my job.
Yep.
Ramon and I were both at a, I don't want to give too much context here because then I'm going to give away identities, but we were both at a professional convention early in the year. And the subject came up. The moderator asked a panel which contained 3 New York Times best-selling authors, what sort of deals have you had to make with people in your life to be able to succeed? And one talked about getting a divorce because he had not successfully negotiated with his first wife a deal that helped her understand, or that gave her back enough goodness that it was worth it to her, and so he lost his marriage. And the second one said, I think to the shock of everyone there, yeah, actually that's happening to me right now. And the third one said, this is a big name guy. He said, you're asking the wrong guy. I failed and I lost my family. And he got up and walked out of the hall. So the stuff you're talking about, Katie, is really, so congratulations to you.
Yes.
This is really vital. You need to figure out who you need with you, who needs to be bought in. You're starting a business when you start writing. Even if you haven't got a finished book, you are undertaking the development of a product. And as an entrepreneur, that is a potentially bottomless suck on your time, and it may end in a car wreck. So you need to figure out what set of significant other, parent, babysitter, children, who needs to be bought in so that you all can be healthy together. And you need to make the deals and compromises to be able to have everyone bought in. And that may mean that you don't write as much as you would like. I travel a hell of a lot. So I leave home tomorrow. I'm going to go spend 4 days on the road for my, it's not exactly day job, but I'm going to go, I'm a corporate trainer. I'm going to go teach 3 classes in Massachusetts. Then I will fly back home, go to the car in the airport parking lot, change suitcases, and fly to Mobile, Alabama, spend 3 days selling books. I'm gone 8 days, right? Now, to be able to do that, my wife and my kids have to be bought in. And part of the deal is when I'm home, I spend a whole lot of time doing laundry and shopping and playing with the kids so that nobody feels left out. And one of the costs for me is I don't have a routine. I write us a shocking amount in airport, terminals or in hotels because or on, I set aside a whole week and I'll write 40,000 words in a week because that's the deal that allows me to do it. And if I were home and I said, no, look, I've got 3 hours of writing time, wouldn't work.
Nope.
No, and when I say I have 4 good hours a night, I wish it was 4 straight hours of writing. But as you all know, being an indie author also means marketing. It also means reaching out to your readers. It means social networking. I mean, there's a lot more involved than just sitting down and getting those words out.
And being, by the way, that's not different from being with a big press. For 90% of big press writers, or 90% plus, people who think, hey, I got the deal with Daw, I got the deal with Tor, that's my golden ticket. Guess what? Internally, there is still a very large chance that you're going to get little to no marketing budget up front, and they will see how you do. And if you stay home thinking I just get to keep writing, and now they're going to make they're going to make me famous, they're probably not. You're probably going to be the one who puts out 2 books and then gets your contract is canceled. So not to discourage you, but Katie, once you've got your Tor deal, you should keep doing what you're doing.
Exactly what you're doing. Yep.
Yeah, and as far as the sacrificing time and stuff with family and writing, when I'm home with the kids during the day, and like today, I said right before we got on, we spent the entire day at the park doing Ren Fair. When I'm with the kids, I'm with the kids. The kids, my husband, that's their time. And the exchange is that, once the clock strikes 8 p.m., mommy goes to work. Just like if dad goes to work and he has his 8-hour shift, mommy goes to work. And I need to have that time because it is a business. It does need to be managed. It does need to be, maintained. Time has to be allocated to different tasks. And if I don't have space where I can actually hear myself think, it's never going to get done.
Yep. And then the other, go ahead.
Oh, so I was going to say, my wife is also a writer. She's got her own agent. Her own debut now is 2019. I think I'm maybe speaking. I'm speaking for her, so I could be mistaken. But my impression is that for her, the hardest part is convincing neighbors that she has a job, because neighbors see that I'm gone. So okay, but then they feel like, oh, Emily's home. So I can go over and ask her to, whatever, come help me plant my grapes. Let's hang out and talk. Come to our, little party. And we like our neighbors. but we kind of want them to like us a little less because it'd be easier for Emily to write. That's a set of people she's having a hard time communicating boundaries to without hurting the relationship.
Yeah, that's actually quite a big thing. I mean, even people who understand to a degree, like you know, I remember when I was still living at home, and when I wrote my first book, and you know, it's kind of a thing where, you know, my family's always supportive. You know, it was, you know, but it was kind of like the, you know, man, yeah, keep going. But then, you know, it's kind of like that, you know, hey, can you go ahead and do this and then do this right now? It's like, and you're like mid keystroke, right? You know, or you know, or if you're working in someone who's close to you who has your back but walks up with the phone and says, man, you got to look at this video of this cat. And you're just like, I had the boulder rolling and now it's stopped, you know. So, you know, people, you know, it's, and, you know, on our side, you got to be a little understanding that they don't understand, you know, even though they might believe in you and even though they might say, you know, go for it, I'm with you all the way, they don't really understand because it looks, you know, it's entertainment, and by and large, entertainment is not perceived as something that's difficult, even though it's some of the most difficult work you can do. Not necessarily like, you know, being a firefighter or being an attorney or being a doctor. I would never compare our profession to that, but it's a different kind of difficult. You know, and it requires not only that sacrifice but the courage to keep going. You know, I have actor friends who have achieved a level of success that I'm, you know, working my way towards, and there are aspects of their stories that are all exactly the same. They're like, man, I was this close to saying, you know what, I've had it, I'm going to get a job, and the next day their agent contacts them with this audition. They go in for it, they nail it, and it's like a cast member for a TV show. You know, and it's the same thing with writing. I mean, when you feel like you want to stop is when you want to push forward harder. Because, and the one question I always ask myself, and any time that I'm feeling doubt, I ask myself this question: how can I live? Can I live with the alternative? So if I decide tomorrow, like, you know, I've had it, this is just too much. I can't be an actor anymore, or I can't be a writer anymore. It's just not hitting. What will I do if I'm not doing that? And how will I feel about living my life that way? And if I, you know, that's how I keep going. And so anytime somebody tells me they were thinking about being an actor or a writer, I tell them don't. Because nobody who's thinking about doing this would do it, because that means you're still in your right mind. Only people who aren't in their right mind pursue what we do.
Divine madness.
Exactly.
Yeah, I was having breakfast with my dad this morning. He said, I don't know how you push yourself so hard for this. And I said, because I really, really want it to work.
Yep. Yep.
That is really good and insightful advice for all of us who are either struggling to attain some degree of success, or who are already successful and kind of searching for a reason to keep going. And I like that, you know, look at the alternative and see if that's the way you want to live. See if you're going to be okay with that. Those are questions that I've had to ask myself quite a few times in this last year. It's like, you know, I don't see the sales that I want, or I don't quite have enough time to devote to this right now. You know, should I keep doing it? Should I keep putting myself through it or my family through it? I'm like, you know what? But I don't want to live without it. You know, I don't want it to be gone from my life. But so I like that. That's good advice for all of you out there watching or listening to hear. It's very good advice, and to understand that it's going to be a lot of sacrifice. And like Dave was saying, that there's going to be a trade-off, and you need to make deals with the people that you care about, so that they know that you're not ignoring them, that they still come first in your life, but that you have to set this amount of time away for your job. And I think those are both very good points from you guys.
That's an excellent way for us to end the show too. That's a good stopping point. And, you know, you've said it yourself, Jason, that's a very poignant message that I think our audience really needs to hear.
Yeah. Well, Katie and Jason, thank you very much. It has been a genuine pleasure. I appreciate the invitation.
It has been great to have you guys on. It was good to meet you both.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you guys agreed to come on the show. Thank you so much.
Oh, it's been a pleasure, and it was really great to meet you guys, and thanks for having us.
Awesome. We'll chat again soon, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining us on another episode of Spilling Ink, the talk show that takes you behind the scenes in the publishing world. With us tonight, we had Ramon and Dave, and these guys are awesome. I can't wait to chat with them again in the future and hook up with you guys on social media a little bit later on. So have a good night, everybody. Katie, it was good to talk to you as always.
Yep, always a pleasure. And we will see you guys again next week with another episode and more authors to introduce you to. Thanks for watching, guys.
Good night.
Good night.
All right, so we are